Hello everyone. It's been a hot minute since I've made a video. Sorry about that. A couple things I want to go over today on the project here, the drag truck project. So we've made a little bit of progress. A couple things. We got the engine back together. As some of you know, we had some issues on 6 summer 25 with the engine. A host of things, valve spring, couple injectors, intake gaskets leaking, couple bad bearings, things like that. So got that all fixed up. Engine's pretty much back together here, and it'll be going back in probably this weekend. So a little bit of another update. This was kind of long time coming, something I had to get done, and I took the opportunity while the truck was kind of torn down here, and I added a bar to part of the cage, structure, frame, whatever you want to call it. Added that guy in there. It's part of the requirement, and kind of been squeaking by for a while, and I figured it is time. So added that bar right there. Got that done. Feels good to get that done. One of the things we're working on right now is I need to add a bump button for the trans brake. I've been kind of riding dirty without it, and it really, really makes it hard. If you're doing a no time race, something like that might not be as critical, but on drag and drives and anything else for that matter, you need to have it, and kind of been trying to do it without it, and got in a hurry the last time I had the wiring apart in this truck, and probably should have did it then, but didn't, and so now we're going to get it done. And basically just wanted to kind of show you guys what I'm doing here. Adding a bump button to the steering wheel. I kind of looked around at some of the options and what other people are doing. There's not a whole lot of information on it online. Everybody kind of just does the same thing. They'll either have a steering wheel with buttons in it. Some people have a trans brake over here. Some people put their bump button over here. Initially I kind of preferred to have a button over here. I noticed a lot of the mounts utilize a 6, because this is a Momo steering wheel. It's got a 6-bolt pattern on it. Some of the brackets, or most of the brackets I found, basically mounted the button off of these bolts here. It'd be these guys here, and it would come up and just kind of veer off to the side here. Some of them had two mounts. One would come over here. Either way, it would put the button way over here where I didn't really care for it. And I had thought about just drilling a hole in here and maybe mount it there. I guess I could do either. I'm going to go ahead and try to utilize what I have here. I was looking at the steering wheel, and obviously it's, you can see it's got a horn, little momentary push button horn switch built into it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize this button and use that for my bump button. I might regret this later. I don't know. We'll see. I can always change it if I don't like it. But I'm thinking just use this for the bump feature. And hopefully, I have enough time to just, bump in and grab the steering wheel and go. I guess it just depends on how my opponent stages in the staging lanes and whatnot, but I don't know. I think I'm going to go ahead and try this. And my trans brake button, kind of hard to see in here. It's pretty dark, but trans brake button is right here. So I'll use my right hand for the trans brake. Obviously I'll be holding that, and then I can bump the horn button for my bump as many times as I need to. Should work out pretty slick. At least I'm hoping. And I'm using sorry about all this back and forth, but I'm using NOS solid state relay kit for the relay on this. And so far it looks pretty easy. I printed off this diagram here off the internet. Somebody had posted this. I think maybe Devin Vanderhoof maybe came up with this. There's a lot of videos he has put out with adding a bump button with the Holley EFI. So basically I robbed this offline, and I'm just kind of following this for the most part. And so turn a flashlight on here, so you can see I got the solid state relay mounted right in there next to the Leash Electronics panel. And basically it looks kind of crude right now, but I'll try to tidy the wiring up a little bit. But I basically have it tied in, and utilizing the Leash Electronics panel. Should be pretty easy. I'm not gonna get into any of the wiring on the center console and the trans brake, because it's already there. It's already run through a Deutsch connector, and basically I just tapped into the power out of the Leash Electronics panel comes out into the solid state relay, and then this wire runs out, and this runs down to the trans brake solenoid. And then you have a third wire here, which is your trigger wire. It's just a negative. You feed it a ground, basically. So this is going to go to the output. Hard to see over here. Once again, the Holley input harness. It's just going to run into there. And then I'll have two wires coming off the steering wheel bump button. Basically, all I'm doing is I'm feeding 12 volts to that button, and then I'm feeding 12 volts back out. And that 12 volt wire back out is just going to run again back into the input output harness of the Holley. So I'm only going to have two wires going into here. I have one wire off the Leash Electronics panel and one wire down to the trans brake. So pretty simple. I obviously have to get the engine and transmission back into this thing before I can test it out, go into the parameters, set all that jazz. So hopefully this weekend I can get that guy back in and put power to it and see what happens. But either way, I just wanted to kind of show this. We'll go back to this here. So I have a steering wheel spacer, Joe's Racing Product spacer. I have an adapter for the 6-bolt Momo steering wheel, and then obviously my quick disconnect for the steering column. So this will all go together, something like this. This will drop on here, and the steering wheel will bolt on. And so then I got a couple terminals here for the back of the steering wheel. They're just going to go on here. This wire is obviously I'm going to crimp the terminals onto this wire. There's just two wires in here. This is a flexible, kind of a vinyl coated, smaller wire. And I drilled a hole in the bottom of here where it'll feed up into here, into the cavity here, and it's going to come through. If you see here, there's a hole here. It'll come from the back side in, feed into here, and it'll clip onto the steering wheel. I know this isn't like an accordion or coil type cord, but I think I have maybe 1 3/4 turns lock to lock on the steering in this truck, so I'm hoping this doesn't become too much of an issue. I'm going to leave it kind of long, and I'm just going to put either a weather pack or a Deutsch connector on the end of this. So I don't know, should be pretty easy, relatively cheap. The button was already in the steering wheel, so I figured, why not? Let's use it, see what happens. Again, if it doesn't work, I can always go away from it. So I'm going to probably epoxy in here on the inside. That's just a little bit to hold this wire from pulling out. You can kind of pull it back and forth. So we'll put a little bit of some epoxy down in there just to keep that from pulling out. So anyway, that's kind of what we're up to. Kind of an update on the truck. not a whole lot of progress in 2 months, but either way, we're getting somewhere. So that's that. I guess hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the update, and hopefully the next one I put on here, we'll be testing the bump feature on the trans brake. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Catch you in the next one.